Hi, welcome back to my story time with Nana. I have a whole new story for you, a whole new A Day with Grandpa. I think you're going to love this story. I love this story. I have taken some liberties, but it is a true story. I can't wait. Let's begin. A Day with Grandpa Krupa. Elizabeth and Colin were the best of friends, but more importantly, they were cousins, and the best times together were when they visited Grandma and Papa. This visit was going to be even more fun because they were going to stay the night. Their parents had dropped them off early because it looked like it was going to snow. They were headed to Atlantic City for the weekend, and they didn't want to get stuck on the parkway. Pop, Pop! Elizabeth cried out, running into the house. We're here! Colin ran in after her. They were so excited to be staying with their grandparents. Pop Pop came out of the kitchen and scooped them up. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Come on, we have breakfast ready. The children followed their grandfather into the kitchen. Grandma was making pancakes, their favorite. As they finished breakfast, they noticed it had started snowing. Hey, Pop Pop, look, it's snowing, Elizabeth said, looking out the kitchen window. It sure is, he said. Do you think it'll stick? Asked Colin. I think it just might, Pop Pop answered. Though I doubt it'll be too much snow, at least nothing like the great blizzard of 1960. Blizzard? Elizabeth asked, looking up at him. Oh, yeah. I lived through several blizzards, but the one on December 12th, 1960 is the first one I remember. Come on, let's go start a fire in the fireplace and I'll tell you all about it. Elizabeth and Colin followed their grandfather into the living room and helped him stack the logs on the fireplace. And when the fireplace was ready, they went to the window and saw that the snow was really starting to come down now. Little small flakes. That meant it was going to stick. Come on, have a seat by the fireplace. The children sat on the rug in front of the fireplace while their grandfather held the lighter to the starter log till the flame blazed up the side. He turned to look at Elizabeth and Colin. It was December 12th, 1960, he said as the flames danced behind him. I'll never forget that day. I lived on South Street, not too far from here. Anyway, three amazing things happened that day, the first being the blizzard. I remember it like it was yesterday. I had a lot of friends and family that lived on my street, and we were all excited when it started to snow. It was supposed to snow a lot, and my friends and I planned on building a fort out of snow. Day before the great blizzard, we were outside, and a group of bigger kids that lived across the street were making fun of us, calling us babies, yelling across the street that we couldn't build a fort. We were too little. But we were determined that we would be the best snow fort builders ever. I yelled back over to them that we were going to build a fort, and then I challenged them to a snowball fight. What are you doing? My cousin Ray asked. Those are big kids. I told him I didn't care if they were big kids. I didn't like how they were making fun of us. Ray wanted to know how we were going to have a snowball fight with big kids. I told him not to worry. We would be fine. We were going to build the best fort ever. Besides, we're family, Ray, and we're tough, even if we are little. And so it was on. Tomorrow. If there was enough snow, we would meet outside after breakfast and build our fort. And once we finished the fort, we would have a snowball fight. The big kids agreed to the snowball fight, laughing at us, calling us small pints. That night I told my father my plans about building a fort. He just smiled as he tucked me into bed and told me he hoped that it snowed enough for a fort and snowballs. He told me there was nothing like building a good snow fort. The next morning I awoke and was amazed. The streets, sidewalks, and cars were covered in snow, nearly 2 feet. I remember hearing my father tell my mother that the city was shut down, paralyzed. That means unable to move. And we were stuck at home for a couple of days until the city could clean the streets. I didn't care. We had snow and lots of it. My mother made me oatmeal. She told me it would keep me toasty warm on the inside while I was outside building my fort. I finished my breakfast and began layering clothes on to keep warm on the outside. My father helped me put on snow boots, snow pants, and a heavy coat. I was all bundled up. I met my friends and cousins outside, and we had snow shovels to help move the snow to build our fort. Basically, we just piled the snow into mounds and built 3 walls. Ray came up with the idea to punch some holes in our walls so we could see the fort across the street. It was a great idea. Now we could see where we were throwing our snowballs without poking our heads above the wall. We had built a pretty cool fort. I thought it looked better than the kids across the street, even if theirs was bigger. And then we began making snowballs and stacking them in the corner of our fort. "Are you ready, babies?" one of the big kids called out. "Yeah," I yelled back. "I hope you made enough snowballs." Suddenly they started throwing snowballs, a lot of snowballs. Ray and I waited for the right moment. Then we started raining snowballs on them. Now I have to admit that some of our snowballs didn't even make it across the street, but we threw as hard as we could, and some of them even hit their fort. The big kids could really throw far, and almost all of their snowballs hit our fort. So much so that the left side of our wall started crumbling in from all the snowballs. We took turns trying to rebuild the wall while still throwing snowballs. We began to run short on snowballs, so we enlisted Ray's brother Tommy to just make snowballs. He couldn't throw very far anyway, but he made really good snowballs. I don't know how long the snowball fight would have lasted because we had a nice system going. But then my father came to the front door and yelled out to me, "Kenny, go get the sled out of the shed." "Dad, we're having a snowball fight," I told him. "I don't want to go sledding." "It's not for you," he yelled. "I need it now. Hurry." I knew that tone with my father. It said he meant business, and I better do as I was told. I stood up and I yelled, "Time out!" to stop the snowball fight. However, I got pelted right in the face with a huge wet snowball. It hurt a little, I can't lie. "Time out!" I yelled again. The big kids continued to throw snowballs, so I had my friends throw as many as they could so I could run to the shed and get the sled for my father. By the time I got back to the front of the house, all the kids across the street were just standing in a line at the sidewalk. They'd stopped throwing snowballs. My friends were looking at the front of my house. I turned my head to see what everyone was looking at, and there at the end of our walk was my mother, father, and Uncle Al. At first, it looked like they were arguing. I brought the sled over to my father, and he and my mother were having a conversation about all the snow and about the baby. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention. My mother was going to have a baby soon. I was going to be a big brother. She was telling him there was no way she was riding on a sled to the hospital, and he was telling her there was no way he could drive her there. That's right. My mother was getting ready to have the baby and needed to get to the hospital on the day that Elizabeth, New Jersey was paralyzed. He finally persuaded her to get on the sled. He tried to pull her along the sidewalk, but the sled didn't budge. My Uncle Al tried pushing, but there were just too many snowdrifts and the snow was so soft, the sled just sank. "Kenny! Get your shovel, he called over to me. We need to make a path. I grabbed my shovel. Now remember, I was not quite 6 years old. I tried to shovel the snow out of the way so the sled could move, but I was having a hard time. I couldn't get a lot of snow on my shovel, and there was a lot of snow to move. And then all of my friends and my cousins Ray and Tommy began to shovel with me, and the sled began to move slowly. The next thing I knew, the big kids from across the street came over with their shovels. My Uncle Al grabbed a shovel, and with their help, we began to shovel a path. On every block, one of our neighbors would ask if we needed help, and we'd pick up another shoveler to help make a path of 5 blocks to the hospital. All the while, my father pulled my mother on the sled. By the time we got to the hospital, we had a big group of people shoveling a path for my mother. That's just how it was back then. People helped their neighbors. It was hard work, and we were all worn out by the time we finished our path, but we had all worked together to help get my mother to the hospital in time to have my baby brother, Ronnie. That's why I will never forget my first blizzard, my first snowball fight, and the first time I became a big brother. December 12th, 1960. We had a lot of big snowfalls growing up, and when my brothers were older, we built the best forts and won many a snowball fight on our street. Hey, Pop, can we have a snowball fight tomorrow? Asked Colin. Sure we can, he answered with a smile. But first, we have to build a fort. Yay! Colin and Elizabeth clapped. The end. Well, I hope you enjoyed tonight's story. Don't forget to share my stories. Thank you so much for stopping in. Mwah.